I'd like to begin today by asking you a question. How's your mood? What mood are you in today? What mood are you in right now? You're probably in a particular mood if you've clicked on this particular video. Maybe you're just clicking through out of curiosity. Maybe you're a regular listener. Special welcome if you are. But it might be part of your routine. Or perhaps you're not in a very good mood. In fact, you might even be feeling quite distraught. Perhaps you don't feel that you're in any particular mood at all. Perhaps you're having trouble getting to sleep. I recommend these videos. If that's so, perhaps you're the sort of person who's relatively calm. Your mood doesn't change one way or the other most of the time. Or perhaps you're the sort of person whose moods are up and down quite a lot, or quite markedly up and down. Perhaps you're fairly calm most of the time, and now and again you explode. Perhaps you're just generally irritable. Or perhaps you find the world rather dire. Most things in it being bullshit. Perhaps you get caught up in various compulsions. Or you've got some fetishes which you might enjoy, or you might feel somewhat ambivalent about, to say the least. Perhaps you've got some addictions. Maybe you're a smoker or alcoholic, or have got problems with food. Perhaps you suffer from neurosis or anxieties, and possibly even some psychosis. So all of these are what I refer to as moods. I think I've covered quite a few of the options. There may be some others I haven't thought of. The question is, are we any more than these moods, even if we're a fairly equable person? That's a mood in itself, isn't it? And if we are such a person, are there storms below the surface waiting to erupt? Anyway, the question I asked was, are we anything other than our moods? Well, there's one other aspect to us. At least one other aspect. And it's the only other aspect I can see. And it's what makes us different from children, animals, and insentient objects. Is that we can be aware of our moods. We can be aware. This might not sound like very much. It might not sound very exciting. perhaps even a little disappointing that this is what I've come up with. But this awareness is a rather extraordinary thing when you think about it. What is it? Are you aware right now? If you're aware right now, can you tell me what this awareness is? Or can you only tell me what you're aware of? But I'm going to put it to you that you don't need to be aware of anything. To recognize awareness. Can you simply be aware? This awareness is an extraordinary thing. If you can appreciate how extraordinary it is, then you'll see that it's no different from what in Buddhism is referred to as enlightenment. If you can be aware of your moods, then you step back from your moods to a greater or lesser degree. You may be able to step back a little bit. There might still be some fundamental tone going on, some rather deep-rooted attitude. So you have to bring awareness to that as well. The key to awareness is acceptance. Acceptance seems to have overtones of resignation, doesn't it? But there's none of that going on. There's nothing flaccid or passive about acceptance. Acceptance is about driving through discomfort and pain. Being uncompromising in our acceptance, accepting without any excuses whatsoever, accepting without any contribution to whatever personal drama we've got going on inside ourselves, whatever personal story about ourselves, our backstory that we're subscribing to. So we're not reinforcing any of that. We accept it. We step back into awareness of it. And in stepping back into awareness of it, we're stepping back into awareness. This is enlightenment practice. It's what most of these videos are about. They're all about supporting enlightenment practice. They're all about coming back to this grand, accepting awareness, which is free of any moods. It's pure. It's the ultimate essence of our humanity. It's the ultimate essence of who and what we are. Everything arises within it. Now it might be in trying to deal with your moods, you've sought recourse to all sorts of options. perhaps medication, perhaps a particular set of beliefs. And if you're looking at these videos, it's quite possible you've got an interest in Buddhist beliefs or Buddhist understanding. There might even be a particular form of Buddhism that appeals to you. You might like the sort of Buddhism which is broadly associated with Southern Asia, with Theravada Buddhism. You might actually be such a Buddhist and follow the precepts and the lifestyle. Or perhaps you're just interested in that kind of Buddhism and you try to follow the training within whatever context you happen to be living in. Or perhaps you're attracted to Tibetan Buddhism. You like the ritual, you like the practices and the aesthetics of it, perhaps. Or perhaps you like the austerity of Zen, the austerity and discipline of Zen. So there are all these possibilities within Buddhism itself, never mind all the other options. The thing is, Enlightenment practice has got nothing to do with any of that. Enlightenment practice is about stepping back from our moods into awareness. That's the only practice you need. That's what you do. You either do that or you don't. And it's very easy to lose sight of this simple fundamental practice if you're caught up with other things. If you're caught up with certain ideas, certain beliefs, and certain notions of what's going to get you liberated. And this is what the next 10 verses in the Sagatakam, the first summary of the Lankavatara Sutra, are about. It's about short-circuiting the Buddhist structure. It's telling us to come back to what it refers to here as mind. Mind with a capital M. This is about being in awareness. So let's go through some of these verses. Verse 273. There is neither a speaker, nor speaking, nor emptiness, since the mind is seen. But when the mind is not seen, there rises a net of philosophical doctrines. So this is a bit surprising. We've often heard there's neither a speaker nor speaking. But the understanding is that there is this thing called emptiness. A thing called emptiness. So we can apply this right now. There's a speaker. You would think, well, there's a speaker. You're looking at the video now or listening to it. Yes, there's a speaker. And there's speaking going on. You're aware of this. So, come back to awareness. Turn your focus from the idea that there's somebody out here speaking to where you're actually hearing the speaking. You're hearing it within yourself. The hearing is coming from where you are. There's an idea that it's coming from somewhere else, but that's only an idea. We're not interested in ideas, we're interested in what's happening. In the usual Buddhist teaching, we're told that there's no self, no intrinsic substance. This is the idea of emptiness. So if you're a Buddhist, you might think, yes, there's neither speaker nor speaking. And this is, you might think, because there's no individual self. So this is the Buddhist idea. The Buddhist idea. It's still filtering what's happening. It's taking us away from authentic experiencing. So we've got to get away from the Buddhist ideas as well. The second phrase talks of the net of philosophical doctrines. And these are the ideas we have of things. And these ideas, whatever ideas we hold to, are represented by our mood, the disposition of our moods, which might be consistent or they can fluctuate quite frequently. So we come back to awareness. Whatever arguments this is stirring up in yourself, that's one thing. It doesn't matter. The thing to do, what we're concerned with as Enlightenment practitioners, is to come back to awareness. Verse 274, there is no rising of the chain of causation, nor are there any sense organs, no Dhatus, no Skandhas, no greed, no Samskrita. So the chain of causation is a fundamental teaching of Buddhism. We're not dwelling on that anymore. We're stepping back into mind, into awareness. Nor are there any sense organs. Oh, this is contentious. There are no sense organs. Well, actually, this is so. It's one of the reasons I do these videos, because even teachers who seem to be full of wisdom and insight still seem to subscribe to the notion that we're perceiving an external world through sense organs. That's a philosophical belief. It's part of the philosophical net of views. It's something I've explored in detail in quite a few videos, not just in this series, but in other series. The Dhatus refer to the sphere of perception associated with these sense organs. There's no Skandhas. The Skandhas is the Buddhist analysis into the so-called individual. It's an analysis by which we realize that there is no individual, but we don't get hung up in it. There's no greed. In other words, greed's the motivating force for delusion. But we're not thinking about that either. And there's no Samskrita. Samskrita, these represent the objects that greed focuses on. So there's a whole dynamic here, which is the dynamic which Buddhists are caught up in struggling with. But we can give up the struggle at any moment, at this moment, and be in awareness. Hopefully, you're ignoring most of what I'm saying at this point, and you're being in awareness, letting everything go, broadening the sphere of your acceptance. It can be quite difficult if you're a Buddhist, because you've got certain understandings which you cherish. The Enlightenment practice is not about cherishing any understanding. Verse 275, short circuit's another one. It's one to do with karma, which is called here the working fire. Verse 275, there is no primarily working fire, no working done, no effects produced, no final limit, no power, no deliverance, no bondage. So the working fire is what propels the cycle of action and reaction, action and its consequences, and its liberation from this cycle which spiritual teachings or spiritual liberation is supposed to produce. Keep stepping back, keep coming back to awareness. Verse 276, there is no state of being to be called neutral. There is no duality of dharma and adharma. There is no time, no nirvana, no dharma-essence. So this awareness can't be called neutral. It's not some sort of passive flat line, because you're actively, dynamically accepting all the time. You have to be, otherwise you're going to get sucked into the objects of awareness once again, all those things that you look to for some kind of emotional fulfillment. So there's no duality of dharma and adharma. Well, the dharma here is spelt with a small d. Dharma normally refers to the teachings, and adharma would be things contrary to the teachings. But I think here the duality of dharma and adharma refers to existence and non-existence. We don't get caught up in calling things real or not real, dream, reality, whatever. There is no time, no nirvana, no dharma-essence. There's no fundamental truth. There's only awareness. There is only coming to awareness. I don't even want to talk about awareness with a capital A or awareness as a thing, because awareness is something which you must always come to. Otherwise it's not awareness. 277, and there are no Buddhas, no truths, no fruition, no causal agents, no perversion, no nirvana, no passing away, no birth. There was a video I did a while back called Buddhas Everywhere, and I was justifying some of the mythological language of Buddhism. And when I was listening to it, I felt a little bit unhappy about it, that I was promoting this. But there are times it's very difficult to come back to awareness because the mood is so strong. So you have to actually work on the mood. And the notion of Buddhas everywhere can be very helpful. But when you're actually in this awareness, there's no need for it. There's no need for any kind of mythology at all. Because this mind awareness, being in awareness, is very full. There's no truths, no fruition, no causal agents, no perversion. In other words, there's no turning away, no nirvana, no passing away, no birth and no death. All of these are notions, ideas, and this is apparent when being in awareness. Verse 278, and then there are no 12 elements. I don't know what these are, but let's not bother with them. And no duality either, of limit and no limit. Because the cessation of all notions, I declare mind only. This is the successful Enlightenment practitioner. We're not getting caught up in philosophical debate. All of these things that have been mentioned are probably quite contentious to a Buddhist. maybe even if you're not a Buddhist, all we're concerned with here is enlightenment practice, coming back to awareness. 279. The passions, path of karma, the body, creators, fruitions, they are like a fata morgana in a dream. They are like a city of the Gandharvas. We step back from everything. We don't push ourselves away. We don't do this by pushing things away. We do it by stepping back. We become bigger than it all. We embrace it. We embrace it without getting sucked into it. Our sense of being becomes huge. We become like elephants. Everything fades into a kind of homogeneous diorama. Just as when we wake up from a dream, all the ups and downs of the dream become homogeneous. It becomes, we just say it was a dream. And this is what happens when you're awakening from the dream of all our notions. 280. By maintaining the mind only, the idea of reality is removed. By establishing the mind only, permanency and annihilation are seen in their proper relationship. So this is it, this is the work. This is what we practice. We maintain the mind only. It's not about hanging on to it. It's about constantly refreshing it. Constantly working with the dynamic that wants to take us away from it. Being aware of it. Being aware. Being in awareness. 281. There are no skandhas in Nirvana, nor is there an ego soul, nor any individual signs. By entering into the mind only, one escapes from becoming attached to emancipation. We're not being driven by anything in particular here. We're just trying to set things the right way up. If you see a bottle turned over on its side and the liquid is coming out, you want to set it up right. That's all we're doing. We're not being driven by anguish and pain because we've stepped back from that. We're aware. We're just setting the bottle up right so that our sense of being is not being spilled out. So this is why it says we are not attached to emancipation. Because we've stepped behind whatever emotional pull emancipation has. We've seen how things are working on the level of our deepest moods. The next couple of verses or so talk about why we believe things to be otherwise. But I hope that whatever mood you're in right now, you've managed to touch awareness. Perhaps you've not been able to remain in it for very long, but perhaps you've managed to keep coming back to it, keep touching it. If not, don't give yourself a hard time. If you think you're not doing it well enough or not doing it consistently enough, don't give yourself a hard time. If you are giving yourself a hard time, then be aware of that. Everything, absolutely everything, is an opportunity for being in awareness.